Today on Homeworthy, we're diving into the world of DIY home decor. We'll start with a rustic ranch home in Ohio that features flipped vintage furniture. Next, we'll explore a serene New York City apartment where renter-friendly DIY projects and budget-friendly decor shine. Then, we'll visit a vibrant and stylish Brooklyn townhome filled with unique flair. Finally, we'll step into an artist's whimsical New York City home, bursting with color and charm. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Welcome Homeworthy. I'm Taylor Loudon. This is my home in Suffield, Ohio. Let's take a look around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
My name is Taylor Loudon. I am a stay-at-home mom of 3. I sell antiques on my website, theflippingvintage.com, and I share my home on Instagram and TikTok at flippingvintage76. I'm located in Suffield, Ohio. My home is primitive, early American style. Most of my stuff is antique or thrifted, or both, because you can thrift lots of antiques around here. My favorite room in the house is probably my living room, just because it's a gathering place. Our house is small, so we tend to gather in the living room, and I love my family, and I just love my kids running around, just watching them play and hang out. Welcome to my living room. So this cabinet I actually inherited from my great-grandma. She actually hand painted it green, which is now my favorite, and you can see throughout my home I am obsessed with green and blues, and it's partly because of her cabinet. This was the first antique piece in my home, and I'll never part with it. Hopefully my daughter will take it when she moves out, but I just love it. Everyone asks me what color it is and how was it painted. Well, my grandma did it, and it's always been like this. All the stuff inside of it I have thrifted. I actually thrifted this yesterday. It's a cloche. These are kind of hard to find and sometimes really expensive. Thankfully, I got it for $5 yesterday, and I decided to put my little mannequin hands in it just for fun, because I like kind of weird things in my home. This scale is another favorite of mine. I actually got this off of eBay, and it arrived broken, and I managed to get it for free because of the shape it got when I got here, but it's one of my favorite pieces. I like to collect oddities, which some people call it. So I'll have a random pufferfish or a turtle's shellfish, the piece of coral or starfishes. You'll see a bunch of random stuff throughout my home, which are oddities. I love old primitive chessboards, but they are very hard to find, and if you do find them, they can get quite expensive. And I mean like $500 expensive, which I'm not gonna pay for a checkerboard. So I decided I have a lot of cutting boards laying around, and this one was a perfect size to make into a chess checkerboard, which I did. I hand painted it, and that took a while, but now I have this beautiful piece that kind of looks primitive, but it's not, but I love it, and I'll probably never part with it now. I like to take greenery from outside inside. It gives it a more earthy feel, and it's natural instead of bringing fake things into the home, which you can exchange frequently and have new things to look at instead of the same thing over and over again. So this is an old baking table where people would prep in the 1800s food or whatever they need done in the kitchen. That's why it's shorter than normal. The legs were not cut. I found this off of Facebook Marketplace, which you'll hear me say a lot because I'm on there quite frequently. I love the color and the shade and just how well built things were back then. It'll last a lifetime. I got this off of Facebook Marketplace also. I wanted a piece that felt like a built-in, so it's a corner cabinet and it gives my home a more primitive feel since my house is not very old. It's from the 50s. It just gives more earth tones, wood warm tones. Inside of it, I have my collection of antique Bibles that you'll see. Some of them date back to the 1700s. I like the massive ones and the smaller ones. The smaller ones are really hard to find, but they're my absolute favorite because they just fit in the palm of your hand. I think they're just so cool. Yeah, most of these are Bibles or religious books. So usually there will be stuff tucked away in these old Bibles, as you can see. Usually you find like hair, which is weird, but it's like of a loved one, or photos of family, or obituaries I find a lot of tucked in here, or like their favorite like poems, like out of newspapers of that week. They're like newspaper clippings shoved in here, which I think is so much fun. So you get a cool old Bible and then fun stuff tucked away inside of them. I do have some like old medical books, so like of animals and human. I just think they're super fascinating. They'll show like old cows and sheep. So this one is like a human anatomy book that shows about the human body and diseases and what could be wrong, or just a bunch of cool things that, you don't really read about very often, but it's a huge medical book and I like the old ones from the 1800s. I think they're just fascinating. I also have this gallery wall in my living room of random portraits. I do not know them, they are not family, but I do love them, and it's sad that a lot of people think they're weird to have and they just throw them away because I think they're just so interesting. These were real people back in the day and now they live on my wall. So most of these I find at flea markets or on eBay. Sometimes the thrift if you're lucky, but usually that doesn't happen because they'll get snatched up really quick because they're really cool. This one is a favorite of mine because of the unusual ornate frame that it's in. You don't see these very often. I found this dentist sign at a local antique shop from my friend. I like black signs, black and white signs, or black and gold signs. I think it's just a fun color display. My grandfather clock is probably my second favorite piece in here. Instead of my grandma's cabinet, I have this. So these are very hard to find. It's an 1800s grandfather clock. It doesn't work, but I found it off of Facebook Marketplace. Sorry, I keep saying that, but Marketplace is a wonderful place if you want to find old, cool things for cheap. It's massive. When I saw it online, I'm like, I have to have that because I have been looking for years. But when I saw it in person, I couldn't believe how big it is because you don't really realize how big they really are until you're standing right next to one. So this cabinet I found off of Facebook Marketplace again. It's an older primitive piece. I got it for like $50, I think, but my TV fits perfectly on it. Our TV is a little big for the space, but it's all right. It's just a, necessity nowadays. My basket of canes. So this is a collection of canes that I have been gathering for about a year now. It's kind of crazy how many canes I find around this area. So this is just one of my collections of things that I like to grab often. It makes the space more interesting. There's a lot of it. It takes your eye to this spot. So I found this at another local antique shop. I actually have this one for sale right now on my website, but I do love it. So sometimes I do display things that I'm selling in my home while I have it. So I always fall for a landscape painting. Of course, this has sheeps in an old farmhouse, which I absolutely love. I'm now walking into my dining room, which is right off the living room. This table is also from Facebook Marketplace. I actually got this one for free. I don't see many like them, so I'm thinking that whoever made this, they lived in an old farmhouse or something and they built this table. The chairs I have thrifted, most of them were $2. My silhouettes of my kids I absolutely love. You always have to have a silhouette in an 1800s primitive style home. It seems to go hand in hand because they didn't take pictures, so they would draw the outline of your face and frame it on the wall. So I recently put this corner shelf up. It's old, I'm not sure how old it is, but I thought it would make a good shelving unit to put plates and pretty kitchen utensils on, just to make the space a little warmer with the wood tones and just something else to look at. Since my house is small and I don't really have a lot of room for big pieces of furniture, I thought this was a good way to bring warmth into the space. I decided to make this little tablescape, so always flowers in a crock. Crocks are my go-to for flower arrangements. Old plates, old glasses, and then cutting boards. That's another thing I like to collect. I think it gives another, tone into the home. Lots of fruit. As I mentioned before, I like to collect baskets. You'll see them all throughout my home, all styles, shapes, big, tiny ones. This is just one of them. They give another warmth. I say warmth a lot because wood tones and wood baskets, they do give a lot of warm tones to your home. So I don't have a lot of that since my house was built in the 1950s. And maybe one day I'll get beams in here to bring more of that in to make it feel like an older style home. But for now, it's just gonna be lots of baskets. Right off our dining room is our kitchen. Pretty much our whole house is just one giant room because it is small. We just redid our kitchen about a year ago. It was originally the original 1950s kitchen, so like stove in the wall and all kinds of ugly wood and laminate. So thankfully I have a beautiful kitchen now that I get to enjoy. That's my kind of style in our home. So this cabinet is an absolute favorite of mine. These are hard to find too, the old, small, primitive cabinets. I think it just gives an awesome texture to the home. I love scallop pieces. My knives, I like old knives. Another collection of mine, I collect old knives. I thought it looked cool on a magnet strip above my stove. My mirrored sconce, these are hard to find too. I think it's so cool how they put little individual mirrors onto a sconce, so when you would light the candle, it would the light would beam off of this more so than just like a tin back. This pine piece of furniture I added recently. It was actually gonna be thrown away and I decided to save it and put a curtain in it because there's no glass panels anymore. And it was skinny enough, I'm like, I wonder if that'll fit in my kitchen. And it fit in this space like a glove, so it'll probably stay there forever. My plate rack, I get asked about this all of the time. I searched, no joke, probably 5 years for one. They are very hard to find. I wanted a 2 stacked one, which you don't see very often. I love displaying my old ironstone plates on it. That's another collection that I have. You'll see lots of ironstone in my home. So copper, you'll see a lot of copper in old 1800 style houses because they would use copper pans and whatnot. So displaying copper in my home is a must because of the style that I have. And I think it's a fun tone to have. More portraits. So you'll see portraits all throughout my home, not just on my one gallery wall. This was a cool piece. I'm not really sure what it was for. The inside of it is tin lined. And then someone painted a portrait of a lady on top of it. I thought it was just very interesting because you don't really see stuff like this. So I just had to have it. So nothing in my kitchen is original to the house. We ripped everything out. I decided in my kitchen I did not want any upper cabinets because back in the day they put old cabinets together and whatever they had to make a kitchen. So I wanted that feel in my home. So instead of cabinets, I did open shelves, which I have all of my stuff on. So our glasses and stuff we use, and my baking bowls, and just decorative items that make the space pretty. So we planned our whole kitchen around my farmhouse sink. I found this again on Facebook Marketplace for 40 bucks. It was in some lady's basement. She didn't want it anymore. And thankfully I saw it first and I got it. It is a very cool piece. I knew I wanted this style of sink for a very long time. I think it is just so cool and it gives so much life to my kitchen. And then I put a wire cooling rack as kind of like a draining system for my cups and stuff when you wash them. So kind of a weird thing to put there, but it works and it makes the sink a little prettier. This door is not original. I actually had this in my bedroom for the longest time because it has a mirror on the back side of it, and I used it as like a body mirror, and I was just done with it in my room, and I'm like, I wonder if it'll fit anywhere else in the house because I do love this door, and thankfully it fit perfect to our basement. So now it stays here. When we moved in, I didn't really have a style, nor did I really decorate my house in any kind of way. It was kind of just whatever I had or family gave me, we put in here because we didn't have a lot of money at the time. I started flipping furniture. That's why my name is Flipping Vintage. It got too much because our house is small, so my basement was full of painted furniture, which I decided not to do anymore. And after going to a lot of antique sales, my love of antiques grew, and I came across the style on Pinterest actually, and I was watching Annie with an E on Netflix, and I fell in love with this style. I loved everything about it. I loved the warm tones of the furniture and all the woodwork, and I want to incorporate it in my house, which I did eventually. So now let me take you to my daughter's bedroom. So this is my daughter's room. I actually just rearranged her room because I had two dressers in here, and this is the smallest bedroom in the house, and it just was not working. So I decided to put this big cabinet in here to put all of her clothes and her toys in, and it just works so much better. I got her pretty little tiaras up here, and she likes butterflies and shells and flowers. So it brings that feminine touch to her room, but still keeping it old, kind of my style, but things she enjoys. This antique oil painting was from the thrift shop. I paid maybe 15 bucks for, and it's massive and pretty cool and kind of a statement piece of her room now. So this mirror is a ornate mirror. It's kind of a French style, kind of not my style, but it is my style because I like them. So it gives another feminine touch to the bedroom. I found this off of Facebook Marketplace again, and I think it was only $20 if I remember right, and it's super heavy. I actually think it came out of one of the mansions in Akron. I love these old chairs that have these wooden details to it. I'm not sure what it's called. It's kind of like basket weaving on them. Usually they're like torn out or broken because they are so old. But this one was so cool, and I thought it would just be a cute little touch to her room, make it more primitive feeling. Her bed is an old Eastlake bed. That's the style that it's called. I love the style of these just because of all the fun scallops and all the detail they put in it, and they're also high. Usually beds are kind of low, and I really like the style of these, which I found this off of Facebook Marketplace too for maybe 15 bucks. So it was cheap and it's pretty and it works. If you're starting to thrift or you're looking to have a more collective home, I would suggest to start collecting certain items. So my favorite items to collect are like baskets or my antique Bibles, or I have a thing for chairs. I tend to grab every chair that I see. It's a problem. Or old linens, but mostly just keep gathering stuff. So keep buying multiple things of each item, and then you will have a more collective home. So now we are in my main bedroom. I like using old linens on top of newer linens. I think it gives the older feel and just extra texture to the room. So I have this old 1800s quilt. It's blue, which I love and gravitate to. I got this old striped French fabric. It's actually just over 2 pillows that I put on top of it. So it's not really a pillowcase or anything. It's just fabric draped over the pillows. My bed is Eastlake. It's actually a full-size bed. My bed is a king size, but I decided to put 2 of the side rails together to make it fit my king size bed, and it works just fine. I actually left them detached because we have a sleep number bed, which is really heavy and it has a base to it. So they don't really move, but if I don't want it in here anymore, I can make it back into a full bed, and I didn't harm an antique in this process. I have this portrait painting over here that I rescued off of eBay within the last 2 months. It was just the canvas rolled up. It has, issues on the canvas of the paint falling off and chipping. But I decided I wanted to save it, so I grabbed it and then I put it on one of my old frames that fit perfectly. I actually hot glued the canvas to the frame to make it work. But it's such a beautiful piece, and I wanted to give it life again. This dresser I found off of Facebook Marketplace again. I think I paid $80 for this one. I'm not sure what this wood tone is called. I've never really seen it before. It's very interesting. That's why I gravitated towards it. And it's just an old, massive, sturdy piece, which you can't really say no to because nowadays they don't make furniture how they used to. So I found this off of eBay. It's the blue ticking fabric work dress, as they would call it. I think it's so cool. You don't really find old clothing pieces anymore. So when I saw this item on eBay, I just had to have it because, well, it's just super cute. So this side table came with my daughter's bed when I bought it. They were like, just take it. I'm like, cool, okay. I painted just around the drawer and the cabinet piece just to, because it would the wood tones blended together. So I decided I just wanted to brighten it up a little bit. And I think it worked perfectly. I'm glad I didn't do too much because it just makes this space pop a little bit more. So I'll show you my boys' room next, which is right over here. So my 2 sons share a room. This room is probably the biggest room in the house, so it just made sense. So I found these 2 old beds off of Facebook Marketplace again. It's hard to find old twin beds that are still together. So I think I paid like $150 for them, but that's still pretty good because you can't find them very often. I have old wool coverlets on both of the beds. They're both different, I think, which makes the space more interesting because it's not just the same stuff over again. I decided to put this rug on the end of it just because of the brown and white stripe. I think it matches good with the blue tones. My boys like all farm themed cows, equipment type stuff. I came across this World's Dairy Congress banner on eBay, which is pretty cool because I haven't seen another one like it or anything similar to it, and it fits perfectly. It has the blue tones in here, which matches their room. And It gives kind of what they like into their space, but keeping it old and what I like to, as because I know when they get older they'll probably get rid of everything that I have and change it to their own, which is perfectly fine, but I'm going to enjoy this stage while I can. I got this antique oil painting from the thrift shop for $60 if I remember correctly, which is a very good find because usually if old paintings have cattle on it, they go for a lot of money because everyone wants one. This one has some damage, but I don't mind at all because of the price that I paid for it. It is just so beautiful to look at. I just love all the detail on the cows and just the color of everything. This dresser I found on Facebook Marketplace again. I didn't spend that much. I think it was maybe $20 for this one. It had different pulls, so I decided I wanted the old cupboard style, and I added these on here for the more farmhouse, boyish kind of look. And I painted it this dark green, which is probably my favorite color to use on furniture. I think it's just the perfect green. I like to use antique wool rugs in a space because there's only one of them, which makes it more fun. I like the brown and the blue tones or the blue-green tones, or sometimes the burgundy ones are pretty cool too, but they are hard to find and they do get pricey. I like to find them on eBay. They do go quick if you do get them on eBay. But I think it just gives fun texture to the room. Not everyone has it. Before we head out to my garden, I would like to show you my hallway. I decided to do checkerboard on the floor. I used to have this in my dining room before we switched out the floors when we did the kitchen. I think it's so fun. It's part of the older style. You see them in old homes. They used to paint the wood. I keep all my cool oil paintings in here. I like to just store them in here. Once I get the perfect size one, I'll place it in the wall. Hopefully one day this whole hallway will be filled with them. I got the sailboat from my local thrift shop for $60. I think it makes a good focal piece for this hallway. It just gives something interesting to look at other than my oil paintings. I chose this home for the land, not so much for the house itself. It's very hard to find land in our area, so as soon as this popped up on the market, we had to get it because it is so hard to find land. I decided to make my home the style that I wanted, which is older 1800s style instead of the 1950s style that it was. Welcome to my patio. We recently revamped our space. We actually had like an awning built over here, which was falling apart, and we decided to tear it down finally. And we repainted the concrete. I put this dining table here, which I love. When this is kind of new, so when it weathers, it'll be like a darker tone wood. It'll give that older style that I'm going for, which I love. So we plant hydrangeas all over the property. They're low maintenance, they're pretty, and they get massive. So I think they're like great barriers instead of using fences and stuff, and they're just beautiful. I love them. So we like to gather outside as much as possible. That's why this dining area right outside our house is perfect for family gatherings and dinner in the summer evenings. Welcome to my garden area. I didn't have a green thumb, well, I thought, and then I started a garden and it seems to be thriving. So I start everything from seed, and I like to use the term chaos gardening because I don't really know what I'm doing yet. This is like the third year that I have gardened. None of this was here on the property when we moved in. We did this about 3 years ago. So I'll take seeds and I'll literally just throw them out, and whatever pops up, pops up. I don't really weed my garden beds at all. I kind of just let everything do their thing. Sorry, my rooster's in the background. We have chickens. This is my flower bed slash weed bed. I do the same thing. I just throw out flower seeds and whatever happens, happens. But I do have some beautiful flowers this year. Last year I didn't get any, so that's a win. So I plant a lot of cabbage type stuff, and I got my celery and carrots and kale. Over here I have onions and broccoli and asparagus, acorn squash. I have my tomatoes and beets. I try to do a little bit of everything. Every year I'll try to do something new. So my picket fence, I got off the Facebook Marketplace for 60 bucks. Picket fence from the store is quite expensive, and I wanted to do this space as cheap as possible. So I got all of this picket fence you see in my garden area for 60 bucks, and we painted it black. So this was our duck hut, but now it's kind of my garden shed. My husband built this from my uncle's barn wood that they tore down, and we painted it black, but it makes my garden space cute and gives that old feel again, because they would just take whatever they had and they would put it together and make something beautiful. Home means to me a place where you gather all the things you love. So your family, or items that you love, or items that have been passed down to you where you don't want to get rid of them. Just treasures that you don't want to part with.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lauren Clark, and welcome to my New York City apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Lauren Clark. Welcome to my one-bedroom apartment on the Upper East Side. I am from New Jersey originally, and I work in interior design now, and I love to do all things home. I always have, so I kind of do all sorts of renter-friendly hacks and tricks in my Upper East Side apartment, and I love to show people how you can make a rental feel like a home. I love the energy of New York. I know that's a cliche, and I specifically love the Upper East Side because it feels like a cozy little neighborhood in the middle of Manhattan. And we've got parks on both sides of our apartment, so we've got water and just like openness, which makes the Upper East Side feel just so peaceful and so different than the hustle and bustle of Manhattan. It was 2022, my boyfriend and I were looking to move in together. I was home in Maryland and he was in Long Island. So we had waited to find a place that kind of ticked all of our boxes, natural light being the #1. We gave up some things, so we gave up a dishwasher, laundry, that sort of thing, but we said natural light trumps all. So it's funny because he actually saw the apartment and we weren't able to FaceTime because people were living here at the time. So he was basically like, it looks good, it looks like it does online, we'll make it our own. And I was like, okay, I trust you, and we signed it. So I saw it when we moved in. And it was pretty much a blank canvas. It had good bones, it had exposed brick. It just had a good feel to it. And we loved the neighborhood and we went for it. Welcome to my entryway in our small one-bedroom New York City apartment. I wanted to make sure that even though it's a small space, all the spaces felt fun and pretty and aesthetic and also designed. And I wanted everything to have a function. In a small space, you don't have a lot of wiggle room on storage and sort of doing things just because. So in our entryway, I wanted to make sure I had a spot where I could stand in front of the mirror before work, kind of grab whatever I need, place to drop my keys, but I also wanted it to feel like a nice spot when I come home from work. It just feel pretty kind of always. I love to use faux florals. These are faux snowball hydrangeas because they are no maintenance and they always look pretty, and I wanted something to fill this space here. I needed a cabinet that was budget and also had storage. So I love this one I got from Wayfair. It's got these turned legs, and I thought that was a nice touch. I just stacked some books here. I've got some matches. This is a little silver bowl that I got from a thrift store in Virginia. And I love to pick up pieces wherever I can because I love to look back and be like, oh, that was fun. That was such a fun day when I did that. I grabbed a bunch of unique pieces, and now every time I sort of look at it, it's like a nice little treat. And I love to collect matches. That's a free hack. Most places in New York and really everywhere, there are all sorts of matchboxes you can get, and they've got all different colors and designs or whatever. It's the restaurant, but I always think that's fun to sort of look back and be like, oh, I forgot I did that, or I did, you know, I went to this place. Or you can also just buy some that have pretty designs, and I love to just throw them in to a little bowl or a little tray, and it just adds some color and flair. Next part of our entryway, I wanted to have a little coat hanging moment without having a big hefty coat rack. So I have, my favorite hack is taking out pages out of coffee table books. So I love to go to a thrift store, buy an art coffee table book. You can kind of poke through them and see if there's pieces in there that you might be able to turn into art. And that is just like the best way to make a bunch of art for not a lot of money. So both of these pieces are actually from a coffee table book that I thrifted on the Upper East Side. This is a vintage frame. I think this is a frame from Home Goods. And I wanted to just put a little blue and a little green here as sort of like an introduction to the rest of the apartment. This is actually a bag from my grandma. This is a hat that my boyfriend got at a rodeo. I wanted it to just feel pretty, but also functional. So adding art into a space like this is just the best way to kind of make it feel cozy, and it doesn't feel so sterile. I also wanted this moment when you walk in to not feel so crazy. So like, I'm not hanging my reusable Target bag out here. There is shoved in my closet, you can't see, but I've got some pretty neutrals out here. I love to sort of lean into like the straw and the leather and then the deep brown, because all of these at the end of the day are neutrals. And I think if all your neutrals are the same color, it feels flat. But layering different materials and different colors and different kind of saturations really make it feel kind of like a moment. So when I walk in, this to me feels styled, but it's also so functional. So this is a funny little moment here. It typically collects random returns and things like that. So instead of having an extra chair that would just pile up with things, as we all know how that goes, I always have frames that I'm interchanging art with. So sometimes I'll get sick of something and I'm like, all right, I really want to change that out. So I kind of always keep these IKEA frames and I rotate things. Honestly, this is craft paper that I painted with white watercolor, so it's nothing fancy, but it kind of makes this corner feel intentional without feeling cluttered. So that way it's not an empty space, but it's also not like a pit for collecting things. And I kind of like the leaning, it feels a little casual. With our rugs in our apartment, everything is super durable. This is from Wayfair, it's the Laloy line. And I think they're both actually Amber Interiors collaboration with them. They're super thin, super durable. They're polypropylene, so it's very like, something spills on this, no biggie. And again, nothing in our apartment is so precious. I don't want to live that way. I didn't want it to be like a white rug when you walk in and you're tracking dirt and then you're like, oh my God, it's ruined. So I love that these colors kind of camouflage anything. And they're super easy to keep clean, and they just add a little bit of warmth. I love neutrals and blues and greens, but I also think if you just stick with those colors, it feels a bit showroomy. So I actually introduce a little bit of this blush and a little bit of gray and a little bit of like pink and mauve, which also carries into our living room rug. Come take a look at our living room. So in our living room, this is sort of, I don't know, the nth iteration of it. When we first moved in, I had a lot of like different bright colors of coffee table books and cookbooks and just different things. And it was almost just too overstimulating. But when we first moved in, we've lived here now 2.5 years. So we've sort of curated it into be what it is now. But when we first started, it was just a blank space. And I love that we had the brick wall. And from there, it's really gone through a bunch of different versions of itself. And we finally landed on, I actually just added my little desk in this corner here because it felt like a fun little moment to put some extra art. And it's super practical for work from home days in front of a window. But I think that like throughout the few years of living here, I've picked up different pieces from thrift stores, and I've gone up to Hudson or Cold Spring or wherever and just pick up fun little pieces that are sentimental. And I think that adding in a bunch of those and accumulating things like books over time really sort of make it feel like the space it is now. And there are pieces in here that I look at them and I'm like, oh, that sparks joy, and I love to look at them. Which is why I think I share so much of this room, because there are so many things going on, but it doesn't feel like a headache. And I think that's the great thing with playing with neutrals, is you can have a lot of things and you can layer a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel overstimulating, which is in my first iteration, that's how it felt. It felt like I had reds and blues and greens, but super saturated, and then like a yellow vase and you know, an orange picture frame. And I was just like, oh my God, there's so much happening. In our space, the first thing we purchased for our apartment was this IKEA sofa. We have a really small hallways outside. They're super narrow, so we needed a sofa that we'd be able to assemble inside. So I actually purchased this in Maryland and brought it on a U-Haul up to this apartment. It was the first thing we had here. And we didn't want to go with something so light. I really pushed for like a white or a really light cream, but my boyfriend was like, that's just not practical. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to fight him on this. And it ended up being great, because it is just, a lot of people I think are shocked that not shocked, but a lot of people are like, oh, it's so nice to see someone with a dark sofa, because so many apartments that people see nowadays are super white and bright and clean and have white or cream sofas. So I kind of like that this is a little bit more unexpected maybe, but I lightened it up with our pillows. So I love to save everywhere pretty much where I can. So all of our pillows are a combination of Amazon and HomeGoods. And I love, my favorite tip is to switch out the inserts. So those two big pillows, and I love big pillows. I don't like the look of teeny tiny pillows on a big blank space, because I feel like it's such a missed opportunity. And I love stripes, as you can tell, but I love neutrals with a little bit of other color infused. So I love the wide stripe paired with the smaller stripe paired with the blue, and then on this side the same but with the green. I don't think you can ever go wrong with a stripe and a floral combo, so this is like exactly what's happening here. But all of these are items that we've saved on. I mean, our sofa's IKEA, our sconces here are Amazon. This frame above our art is one of my other DIY hacks. So I bought this big frame at a thrift store, and it had this ugly kind of piece of art in it, which is not a problem. I wanted it for the size of the frame, because buying big art is super pricey. So I went down to Mood, the fabric store, and I picked up this really pretty piece of gray and navy fabric, and I made it into a piece of art. So this whole area was kind of the foundation of our apartment. The pillows, when we first moved in, I had bright pillows. I had pinks and I had oranges, because I love those colors just in life. But in my home, I didn't want to feel overstimulated when you come out of the crazy city. So I think that sticking with neutrals is the best way to make a space feel calm without feeling boring, by infusing different colors and patterns with them. Our coffee table is another budget find. It's from Target. In my opinion, it looks like $1 million, and I just wanted a light wood. I didn't want to introduce any other materials. I like the look of the wood paired with the dark charcoal sofa, but what I did do is layer in fun pieces. So things are super practical, but also super pretty. So like this, for example, gorgeous bone and lay box, right? I got it from HomeGoods, but it stores all of our remotes. So it's perfectly functional, and I don't have to look at all of the remotes. So I love doing little things like that, especially in a small space. You really need to like hone in on storage. So things like that to me are just a perfect hack. So I just like to layer things. So I keep saying that, but like a book with a box on top and then fun trinkets. Like these are dice that I got with a friend. We went up to Hudson, New York. We spent the day and we went thrifting, and we got these at the first store we went to. It's a cute little coffee shop, and we were like, how fun is that? And every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, what a treat. You'll see that's a theme, but I love to pick up things where I can. So This, I love to add extra texture where I can too. So this tray is another budget home goods find. And I wanted it to feel like it wasn't 3 just stacks that were the same. I wanted them to feel slightly different. So that's why I like to also mix and match with height. This vessel is also thrifted from a thrift store up on the Upper East Side. Probably got it for like $5 to $10, but I think it just adds so much flair to it. Again, matches are something I love to collect. So this I got actually recently at a thrift store, Luckett's. It's a cute little town in Virginia, and they've got like amazing home decor finds, but a huge matchbox like this with really long matches, which is just like so fun. And I like to have the top peek out a little bit because the blue is, you know, why not? And then over here is another thrifted find. So I got this silver tray. It's got little footies on the bottom. And I got this at a thrift store in Cold Spring, and I was on my way out, had a million things, and I saw it and I was like, I really wanted just like a big catch-all for all my matches. I love to show my matches because they're just fun. They add color. It's not so serious. But when I bought it, it was super tarnished. So I think that's why people kept passing up on it, because it had really good bones. But it was pretty much black, and you could see on the bottom that there was silver. So I did a like a silver cleaner, and I removed all the tarnish, and it looks like $1 million. And I think I probably got it for like $15. But to me, it just tells like such a fun story, and it adds so much flair. So now my coffee table, while it's functional, with our remotes and a place to drop your drink and a place to, you know, eat, all of that, it's still pretty, and it also has little bits and pieces of moments that I like to look back on fondly. And I think that is just the key to making a space feel like you. It doesn't feel so serious, but it feels like, oh sure, I'll just, you know, I'll just plop here with my book, because it feels super inviting. So this corner was like my most hated nook in our apartment for the longest time. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. And I felt like it was just collecting things, and it was just, oh, I hated it. But when you walk in, it's the first thing you see. So I was like, okay, I'm determined to make this feel like a cute, cozy little nook. And so I did a few different things to sort of pull that off. First, a DIY hack. We have our steam radiator here because it's an old New York City building. And what my dad helped me do is build this wood structure, and then I got these aluminum sheets and I painted them white. So now when you look at this, it's not such an eyesore, and it's just, yeah, you know something's going on over there, but it's not this horrible looking old radiator. I got this brown velvet chair from Target, and my favorite hack to do is a lot of furniture from Amazon or Target, they tend to be pretty short, and I knew I wanted it to be a little taller, because when I first put in the Target chair, it felt a little squatty and it felt a bit disconnected. So I got these legs from Amazon, maybe $20, and I screwed them in instead. So I wanted to add a little bit of flair too. So the legs that they came with were straight and just like a very light wood, and I wanted to add in something with a little bit of interest, so a little bit of a turn and a dark wood. And I think that now it makes the chair feel way more luxurious than it is just a Target chair. And I knew I wanted to add in some color. So adding in a pop of blue here felt just like a fun nod to the rest of the apartment, because I've got blues, I've got greens, and all brown and all neutral felt just too disconnected. I liked it as the base, but I knew I needed a little something. So honestly, the animal print is unexpected from the rest of my space, but it feels good. It feels right because it's got white in it. It's not shiny or anything like that. It just feels like a pretty print. And I think that it makes this space feel like interesting because it's a little more unexpected. And the art here, my favorite thing to do is just do a little pairing of 2 pieces of art, 3 pieces of art. I just love that look. So that is a Target frame that I took a piece of craft paper and I did some watercolors. And then above that is a thrifted frame and then a thrifted piece of art. I think it was probably a print from a shop downtown. And I've cut that print into like 3 different pieces of art in my apartment. I'll show you them. But it's just like a neutral base, and I love that the colors are soft, neutral, but they're not flat. And I think that this corner is like my favorite in the apartment now, and it gets so much airtime on my TikTok because I think so many people kind of resonate with that cozy reading nook that you see in all these movies. And I kind of brought it to life, and I just love how it looks. So this lamp is one of my favorites. It's from Target. Everything's from Target. It's a gooseneck lamp, and it's got this really pretty rattan shade to it. And because of the warmth of the shade itself, the light it emits is really pretty and soft. And I think that it's, again, it's something interesting, which is my kind of key to making a space feel curated and unique, is that I didn't just go for like a straight lamp with like a linen drum shade, which I've got in other spots, don't get me wrong. But over here, I wanted it to sort of pack a punch because I knew I was just doing a chair and a lamp. So adding interest in the color and the material and the shape of it really makes it feel like this cool moment. And I love how it looks. And at night, it's just so cozy. This area is kind of my second iteration. When we first moved in, I didn't know what to do with this space, and it just felt like a missed opportunity. Once I hung the curtains, I was like, okay, now we're framing this up for something cool, for this to be a fun moment. So at first we had a bar cart that was like black glass with gold. I'm not really sure why we went for that. And then I ended up DIYing the black, and I kind of put this like linen peel and stick over it to sort of soften it. And it still just felt so harsh, and it felt a little bit dorm roomy, if I'm being honest. So after a while, I was like, just not loving it. And I kind of hated this area until I got it right. So I ended up going for a really dark bar cart, and that's what I knew I wanted. Once I was moving away from the gold, I knew I wanted something rich and sophisticated looking, but I wasn't gonna spend. So I actually got this from Amazon, and people are always like so incredibly shocked by that. And I agree, because it's a big, big piece. It holds a lot. The color is nice. It's not shiny or anything. It's got these wheels on it. It just, to me, looks like an heirloom piece that someone's always had. And I knew I wanted to be able to stack and layer things here, so this could feel like a moment. And I think that the dark plays really well with the light curtains and the light walls. And I just think it feels, especially at night, it just feels like a library kind of. It feels sort of super cozy. And you kind of feel like you're in a secluded, like a wine bar or something like that. So these pieces I get a lot of questions about because I do show this particular angle in our apartment quite a bit. So this is a piece my mom painted years and years and years ago, and it was just sitting in our attic, and I loved the color, and I didn't have quite a spot for it in mind, but I knew I would find a place for it. So I hung it here and could not figure out what to do here. And it took me, a bunch of different versions of hanging different pieces together for it not to feel so crazy. And I think that this bright teal works in this space with the rest of the room because I balanced it out with a super neutral piece of art. Which this art I get so many questions about, and it's so funny to me because it's literally a piece of poster board from Target, and then I took Crayola watercolors and did little loops because I had seen on Pinterest or other things online this sort of looped art. And I liked how it looked. I liked that it was simple. I liked that it wasn't boring, but I liked that it added a little color. So I thought that pairing these together was just like a fun contradiction. And I think it really plays well too with that gold picture lamp, and that's from Amazon. I love to mix highs and lows, and I think that it really makes it feel like this is a fixed piece of our apartment. And I've also layered in things like I love my dried hydrangeas, and I get these from Etsy. And I love the green because they require zero maintenance, and they just always stay pretty. And I've got fun things like this I picked up at a thrift store. It's this really fun seashelled, I don't know what I would call it, platter, no, tray maybe. And I just think something like that is fun and unexpected, and it pops so well on the dark wood. And then we've got things down here that, these my mom gave me from her grandparents, and my grandparents had some other glassware. So I've got things layered in that are new, but also mixed with old. And I think that's how you strike the balance between something feeling so stark and showroomy, is when you mix in the personal pieces that tell a story. I think that makes it feel cozy. So this bookcase is from IKEA, and it's actually 3 pieces. So this is like a bookcase tower with concealed storage down here, and this is a dresser, and then that over there is the same bookcase. So I wanted it to be a fun place to display things that were pretty and kind of added personality to the space without it being overstimulating. So on my first go of the bookcases, I had a lot of crazy colors and it was just too much. So I've pared it down. And a fun thing to do and an easy hack to do is any book that's got a crazy spine, but you want to use, you can always flip them around. So now you're just seeing the pages of the books. So this still reads super neutral, but the actual spines of those, some of those are red. And I also like to do things like I have photos of me and my boyfriend, and I've got them in black and white with a fun frame, because when you've got too many colors, you kind of get a little lost in the sauce and it feels a bit crazy. So putting them in black and white is one of my favorite things to do, because it still adds personality and it still adds that little, personal touch to your space, but it's not introducing other colors that aren't in the rest of your space, and it feels like it's distracting. Our bookcases in here get a lot of traction online. So they are just modular shelves from IKEA, but what I did a little DIY hack. So I put peel and stick wallpaper on the back of it, and I also put wood contact paper on the shelf. So everything was all white to begin with, and it just felt too harsh on the brick wall. The all red wall with the all white just felt too disconnected. So I thought that softening it with the wood contact paper just really made it feel nice and cozy. And then once I did that, I lived with that for a while. And once I'd painted our bedroom and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back to some wallpaper. And I just put a neutral but printed wallpaper on the back here. So it honestly feels more like a built-in than it does a piece from IKEA. And I think sometimes people are shocked that they're not like custom built-ins or anything, because they do feel more lived in. And a lot of the pieces here, again, are accumulation of things over time. So some of these books are thrifted from thrift stores, or some of these boxes, like these are from Home Goods. And I like to add height because I think that makes things look interesting. I don't want everything to feel horizontal, and I don't want everything to feel vertical. And I also think always adding a floral or a green makes your space feel alive. So I've got florals all over, and a plant like this is super practical in New York because it doesn't require a lot of light and a lot of maintenance. But again, it adds a little bit of life to the space. And it doesn't feel like a showroom. I love random pieces like this. This was an egg that I got at a thrift store down on the Lower East Side, and I found this little ring that it sits on, and it wasn't sold together. It was with something else, and they were like, oh yeah, you can mix that stand with that. So this piece, I just think it's so fun and pretty and adds just a fun flair. And I am obsessed with the mini lamps. So I've got lamps everywhere, table lamps, floor lamps, and this you can put like a rechargeable bulb in here, and it just sits and it's so cute. So this desk area is kind of a funny story. So this was a desk that a friend had in her apartment and was getting rid of. It was like a vanity. So we had it in our bedroom, and I used to work from home in there, and there's like not as much natural light in there at all. And it was just collecting stuff pretty much. So we were like, why don't we pull it out? I'm gonna make a little nook here. I used to have a table here with a tablecloth over it. And honestly, it was like a catch-all spot for a soccer ball or pickleball rackets, tennis rackets. And I could kind of like conceal it under this tablecloth. But we didn't have the luxury to just have like spots to store stuff like that. So I decided to move our desk from our bedroom out here, and now it's great for days when I work from home and when my boyfriend works from home. And it's so nice because it's by the window and it gets a ton of natural light. And I wanted it to be not so stark white, because yes, the desk is white and the rest of our apartment has bits of white, but I wanted it still to feel so connected to the rest. So I made this little gallery wall of different thrifted frames, home good frames, prints from coffee table books. This is actually, these butterflies are from a poster that my boyfriend and I went downtown. We got, it was this poster from like somewhere down in the seaport, and I liked the butterflies, and so I cut them out. This was a big map from a thrift store up in Hudson, and I basically cut it into little pieces. So I've got other parts of this throughout the apartment, but I liked the blue, and I like that it was ripped and lived in, and it's from the 1920s. So I think stuff like that is just so cool and interesting, because I also want art to feel like there's a reason for it. I didn't want to just put Target art on the walls that kind of mean nothing and don't add so much. And I think that adding in blues and greens here and the unexpected, the burlwood, and then like random things like this, like a stacked set of books with this cabbage pot that I got. I think that things like that make it feel like, oh, someone lives here and there's a personality. So before I take you into the kitchen, I want to talk about our little bar counter moment. Another budget find. All of our bar stools are from Target. We used to have these dark leather with black leg bar stools that we got when we first moved in. There wasn't much design thought behind it. It was just, we needed them and we needed them fast. So I wanted to opt for something lighter and a bit airier. And I just love how these look. And this is another funny art DIY moment. So I wanted this to feel, again, connected to the rest of our apartment, and I wanted to take advantage of this big blank wall. So I just did a little watercolor moment with some, again, poster board from Target and then Crayola watercolors, and I just mixed some blues and greens, and I didn't want it to feel so blue or so green, so it's kind of why it ended up like a little bit of like a seafoamy blue. And I just think that this is a fun peek into the rest of the kitchen where I've got blues, I've got greens, and I've got neutrals. And I just think it's a little bit of fun color and flair to add to this wall to make it feel like a moment. The art in my apartment is funny because I've DIY'd a lot of it, and it's not so much out of a love for art. I mean, I love making things look nice, but I also am so cognizant of budget. So sometimes it's just out of necessity where I figured I didn't exactly know what I wanted and I wasn't going to spend time looking for a print and buying these prints, where I was like, I can just basically craft it on my own and then I can tweak it. So if I made them and I was like, oh, it's a little too blue, I could just go ahead and add green. It's kind of a funny story how I got here, but I was making charcuterie boards that actually started as a hobby and a means for me to, as a creative outlet, and then it turned into a full-fledged business. And so I did that for a few years, and then I actually met my old boss, who I did a board and a whole presentation for a Golden Globes party. And it ended up being, we worked so well together, I ended up working for her full time. So we worked in events, and we did TV and movie premieres, and I was between LA and New York quite a bit, but it really made me realize how much I loved the design part of what I was doing, and I felt like I was getting closer to what I've always loved, which is all things home. So I basically used my apartment to build a portfolio for myself, and I would do different things around it. I would peel and stick, and I would sort of film, and then I realized that, like, oh, this could be my way back into interior design, and I basically used my space to create a portfolio, and that's sort of how I got into interior design now, which is what I do full time. I think why people follow me online on my TikTok in particular is I like to show people that you can sort of reimagine any space, especially in a New York City apartment. When we moved in, everything was a blank space, and I said, like, I'm gonna make this into a home. I wanted, after a long day of work and the craziness of Manhattan, to come home and feel like calm and feel peace and quiet. So we've kind of carved out this little slice of heaven for ourselves up here. And I think that a lot of people really resonate with that, not living in a fancy luxury building and making it feel cozy and like a home. And I think that there's a lot of layering and things that I do in here that sort of make it feel that way. But honestly, I think that most people come to my page because of how it makes them feel. Like, I look at my space and I'm like, oh, I feel calm. My brain feels quiet. And I think that when people see that on their page, it's kind of like a nice, okay, like I see some blues and greens and neutrals, and it just feels like a cozy space you want to like curl up and read a book. Next, I want to come show you our kitchen. Our kitchen, I feel like I made the most changes in, and when people see the befores, I would say they're probably the most shocked by it. So our counters were white, our walls were white, like shiny cement, and then our floors were these large bricks that some were crumbled and they were uneven and broken. This window area too, it's a big window, but it goes to an alleyway, so there's not even a ton of natural light, but it's pretty spooky looking, so I made sure to make a moment out of it. So I put these really pretty bamboo shades on it, so we still get a little light in, but it's also not just looking out into a creepy alleyway. And this little nook has become a favorite part of mine in our apartment. And I've stacked some cookbooks here. I've added a cutting board. Adding a little lamp, I mean, you cannot go wrong. I've got 2 lamps in the kitchen, and the kitchen's about 4 feet. And I love to add a little bit of art, so it's unexpected too. This art is from a garage sale I got in Maryland. A funny story about our wood contact paper. Our super came to fix something and he was like, oh, you guys got wood counters like no one else in your building does. And I was like, we definitely don't either. I spent many hours doing peel and stick on our floors, here and the wall, and I think it just softens everything. The walls, I just wanted something that would make it pretty without making such a statement. Because it's a small space, you could lean into a big bold print, but I just didn't want to add any extra chaos. So I went for this really pretty gray print, and it just adds a little bit of softness. So this is a thrifted plate that I got, and this is a fun little hanging basket, I would say, and we keep some wedding save the dates in there. And I think I love to kind of make little moments even in a small space. So in here, I've got I've got art on all the walls, and it's a tiny space, but I wanted it to still pack a punch and still feel like people lived here, even though it's a rental. And I think sometimes people think it's crazy that I do all these things to a rental, but I also think it's crazy to live in a rental and not make it feel like a home just for the sake of it's not permanent. So all of my hacks and tricks are super affordable, and when we leave, this will peel right off. The floor tiles will come right off. You have to make sure you put clear contact paper below it, so that way the original floor is not harmed, and that I will make sure I mentioned. But it's not to say that you can't make a space feel so cozy, even in a rental. So some of this art too this is an IKEA frame with a piece of fabric that I got. I just like the colors. This is from another coffee table book. This is actually a frame that my boyfriend and I got in Ireland, and I just, I think it's so fun to look at things that, again, have sentimental value. And I like adding in pops of blues and greens so it matches the rest of the apartment. So this little cooking moment over here, this gets a lot of airtime online. I'm obsessed with this was a little Target lamp I had, and I switched out the shade for this pretty rattan one, and it just adds so much warmth to it. And this cooking area at night is where I spend the most time, and it's so cute and cozy. And again, I've got art, thrifted frames, and then this is actually another continuation of that print I've got from that corner nook, and it's sliced up again into another piece of art. But it's just, again, it's soft and pretty, but it adds personality to this space. Living in New York in a small 1-bedroom comes with a lot of quirks. One being, this was the fridge that we were given when we moved in. It's a tiny mini fridge, and now it's honestly like a drink fridge for us. We had to buy our own refrigerator, and when I was doing my charcuterie boards, honestly, it worked out just fine. So because we only had the tiny little fridge here, we had to buy our own fridge and freezer, which worked out because I was doing charcuterie boards at the time. So this lives in our hallway. It's an extension of the kitchen, but I didn't want it to feel like such an eyesore. So I put a little basket on top with some cookbooks and a plant, and it just adds some personality. And we keep pictures of us and places we've been, and we'll buy magnets, so it kind of feels, I don't want anything to feel so serious. Like, I want it to feel like it's our home and it's our apartment. So I've got fun, crazy magnets on here. So this is a fun, little additive to our apartment. These were, I think my dad had actually saved some of these for me from fortune cookies, and I just thought they were cute sentiments to have on your way out before you start your day. Good reminders sometimes when you're looking in the mirror. And I just think adding things like that kind of make it feel like people live here and it is a home, as opposed to a showroom. I think my absolute favorite renter-friendly hack is all things peel and stick. I've got peel and stick floor tiles, a wallpaper. I've got it on my bookcases. It's such an affordable way to really zhuzh your space up, and you don't have to live with the space that you were given in a renter. You can kind of make it feel soft and cozy. And it's very tedious and you have to have a lot of patience when you do it, but the outcome is always so nice because you can kind of make it into whatever you want. Like on this bookcase here, I've got peel and stick wallpaper on the back and then contact paper on the top. So it was an all white bookcase that now feels like a little bit more like a library. In our bathroom too, in our kitchen. And I think that peel and stick wallpaper can totally elevate a space. I do think it's fun because it's very affordable, and in a small space like mine, I don't need a lot. I've only needed several rolls for my bathroom or my kitchen, and it's not so crazy, but it does pack a big punch, which is what I love. So we'll just pop into the bathroom really fast on our way to the bedroom. I've got some art here in our hallway. Again, some other clippings that we've seen in other parts from prints that I've kind of sliced up. But I wanted at least this entry when you first walk in. It's a tiny wall, but I still wanted it to pack a punch. And then in our bathroom, I just did some very minor cosmetic things. When you live in a rental in New York, your bathrooms tend to be pretty bleak, and it was all white. Our floors were this like really dark green, which just, I didn't love. There was nothing wrong with it, I just didn't love it. So I did peel and stick wallpaper on the walls, and then I did on the floor as well. And I added in some art, some thrifted art, some candles, some flowers, some decor, a pretty hand soap dispenser. So that way at least it feels like us, and it feels cozy, and it feels peaceful, and it feels like it's part of the rest of the apartment, and it doesn't feel like this sort of piece that doesn't add up. I wanted it to feel like there was continuity, and I think just adding those quick little things really made a big difference. I think the best way to create and carve out a little slice of peace in the craziness that's Manhattan is finding and making your space feel like you, and making it feel cozy and super layered. So like, I love to have lamps everywhere. So at night, the overhead lights are not on. It feels like it's lamp o'clock, it's soft, it's cozy, and I like to see things that I like to look at. So I like to have photos of me and my boyfriend around the apartment. I like to have little things I've collected over time. So it makes it feel personal and to you. And after, you know, a long day and commuting and on the subways, you come home and you're like, okay, this space is mine. And I think that a nice way to do that is layering, and you layer in pieces that spark joy for you somehow. So I've got sentimental pieces layered with books from a thrift store, and at the end of the day I look and I see all these soft surfaces that when you come home from all the cement and the concrete of the city, you come home and it's like a soft place to land. I think that's what makes a home feel super cozy, and that's that Nancy Meyers look. It's that super layered look. It's got blues and greens and neutrals, and it's got floor lamps and table lamps and pillows and blankets and stacks of books, and it just feels like someone lives here as opposed to like a museum. And nothing in my home is so precious that, like, you know, be careful of the rug. Like, it's not like that. I want it to feel lived in, which is what makes a place feel so cozy. And at the end of the day, what I crave to come home and be like, okay, I can decompress and just like veg and read a book or whatever it is. And now I want to show you guys our bedroom. It is teeny tiny. This was the only spot that the bed would work, and it's a full-size bed, and I know that appalls a lot of people, but there was no world in which it would fit any other way. So we weren't able to have a headboard, which I wanted to make up for in other design choices. So this is my latest project. I painted stripes on our walls, which took years off my life, and I'm not joking. I wanted it to feel like a Parisian hotel, and not that I've been to one, but what I would envision it feeling like. And I wanted it to feel soft and cozy. And there's this really pretty Schumacher wallpaper that I love, way out of budget. So I said, let me figure out how I can kind of do it on my own terms. So I did a really light color and then I had to measure out and do all the taping, and then I did this dark taupe. And I think that the two together look so soft and pretty, and it just adds so much character to the space. Originally, it was all white, and I just didn't like that. And so I painted it blue. So if you'll see on the door and the trim, it's this darkish blue, and I had painted the whole room that. Last year, I did the whole room, including the ceilings, in this blue, and I did the trims and the door and the closet in a high gloss, so it would really feel intentional. And I wanted to feel like the room was just like drenched in this really rich color, because we don't get a ton of light in here, so I tried to like lean into that. And it honestly, I loved it for the winter months. It felt like a cocoon, but then in the summer, it felt kind of offensive. It was like, oh, it's so pretty and nice out, but you're coming to this cave. So I decided to scratch that, but I loved the blue I had picked, and I wanted to keep some of that. So that's why we've still got some blue in here. And I think that the blue pairs so well with these neutrals because it adds a fun pop, and doing it in a high gloss makes it feel super elevated. And it's all just Benjamin Moore paint and a lot of patience. So I wanted our bed to feel cozy and inviting, but I also love the look of a crisp white hotel room, but I wanted to add a little bit of warmth. So I added in some other materials. So we've got some linens, and I added in this blue quilt, and I've got some grays and whites in here. And I think that adding in extra layers, whether it's pillows, accent pillows, or comforters at the end of your bed, it really makes your space in your bed just feel extra cozy. We don't have a headboard because we don't have space for it. So I wanted to make sure that the pillows felt like they carried a lot of weight visually. And so I also wanted to make sure I did art right above the bed that added some height. So I like that the pillows filled up the space here, and then you've got height in the art that you don't even realize that you don't have a headboard. And I think that doing little things like that are kind of unique to New York, in that you've got to put your bed where you can, and you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, but you can make up for it in other ways with some design choices. So I feel like this is kind of a perfect way of showcasing in a small New York City bedroom. It does not have to be boring, and it can still add a lot of personality. This art above our bed is another DIY moment. I got these frames from Target, and I just liked that it was a big, pretty mat, and then you can choose the frame size. And I wanted it to be small, but again, pack a punch. And it's the same thing. I just did a little watercolor moment. I wanted to add some blue, but I didn't necessarily want it to be the exact same blue as the trim in here. And I love the contrast between the white, the bright blue, and the gold. And I think it's simple, but it's intriguing that it just adds what it needs. It's not too much, it's not too chaotic, but it's not boring. And I think that mixing it with everything else and all the whites, the little bit of blue, is just like such a fun elevated punch to me. So I had this sort of dead space in our bedroom. This is where our desk used to be. And imagine working from home here in an all dark room with no natural light and then dark blue walls. It is just not the most conducive for a work from home environment. And we always need the extra storage. So we got this dresser. It's a Wayfair find. One day I'll upgrade the hardware, but it just fits so perfectly, and I wanted it to have a little height too, so I could sort of make a moment of it. And again, adding in art and personality is like the best way to do it, and it doesn't need to break the bank. So this is another continuation of my craft paper with watercolor series, and it's an IKEA frame. This is another Target frame with another watercolor. It's the scraps from the art above my bed. The one above it is actually something my mom painted too when she was younger. And I just love the blue, and I love the sentiment. It's this really pretty oil painting. Like, I would pick it up on my own, but even more special that my mom made it. And then the top is actually a postcard. It's a watercolor painted like postcard that my boyfriend and I got when we were at a wedding down in Virginia. And it was a cute old town, and we saw it and we thought the colors fit perfectly and we wanted to get something from there. So I hung it up there. I also got this very, very vintage racket from a thrift store down in Virginia, Luckett's, which I'd mentioned before. It's this like amazing town, and there's just like houses filled with thrifted goodies. And I just saw the racket, thought it was fun. No real meaning behind it, but not everything has to have meaning behind it. And I just think it's kind of unserious in a way. And we play pickleball, so it's kind of a little nod to that. But I just think it also breaks up the bright white IKEA frame. So mixing the new with the old makes it kind of feel cohesive. On the dresser, this felt like it was part of this whole situation. So I got this lamp from Home Sense and this really pretty raffia shade, which I just thought was so pretty and soft and kind of is a nod to my other lamps inside. And then I just lighted a coffee table book, this mannequin I got at a thrift store, my favorite dried hydrangeas, again, no maintenance, and then some more matches. So I think that adding these little vignettes with some personality make this space feel like it's meant to be part of this bigger picture of the room in the apartment, where it was originally a space that I was like, ugh, couldn't figure out what to do with it. And now I love it, which is the same like the nook in my living room. It was a space I originally hated, and now it's my favorite. This dresser was one of the first things we bought too, and we just needed storage. There wasn't much design thought into it, so we just got this big white dresser from Wayfair. And I knew that I needed to add more personality to it, so I thought I could do that on top of it. So again, I love to layer, so I've got stacks of coffee table books, I've got some candles, some flowers, some thrifted pieces. Doing a tray is just the best way to sort of fill the space because I've got my stacks of books and I've got height, but I didn't want to do it again, just like the same as the coffee table. So I went ahead and did a scallop tray for some interest. I've got this really pretty blue speckled ring jewelry tray. I've got some more matches, some more dice, and then I've got a really pretty hurricane candle. And I think that it's just easy enough. It looks pretty. We've got plenty of space for getting ready in the morning, whatever it might be, but it also softens it because the white is so stark. I wanted it to feel like we've got blues and we've got browns and we've got neutrals, but it still feels like it's a part of the rest of the apartment. And another hack I did is these are not even plug-in sconces. I have rechargeable bulbs in them. So they are real hardwired sconces that just aren't hardwired. And I just love the look of them because it just finishes off the dresser for me. I've got the mirror and then I've got these flanking it, and it just is a finishing touch to it. Now this art over here on the stripes, I love how it looks. This is an IKEA frame with a page out of a coffee table book, classic, a thrifted piece of art in its frame, and then this is actually that Hudson map that I've cut up in a million pieces, but I just love the blue, and I think that the dark blue is nice, A, against the stripes, and B, with the light blue, and I love to stack art. I don't love necessarily one piece on its own. Sometimes you have to, and it makes the most sense, like we've got that above our couch. But when I can, I love to stack 2s and 3s, and especially odd numbers. So this, to me, just finishes off this wall, because when you walk in, it's the first thing you see. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to just leave it empty, so kind of went for it. And I think that it just softens this corner in this area, and it just, again, is another place to add some personality and make another moment of it. When I had first painted the bedroom in the all blue, I went for a really high gloss on the closet. I wanted it to feel different from the walls, but I also wanted it to feel totally drenched in color, so the way I could differentiate the two was in its finish. So it honestly is like my favorite part of the room now because of how the color and the finish pop on the walls. I think the blue is so fun with the neutrals. The shine is just, I don't know, it's so fun. And when you add a shine and a high gloss, it makes a space feel super elevated. And again, it's a super easy way to do it. It's just a Benjamin Moore paint, but it just packs a punch. And we could have just left the doors white, but why not paint it blue and high gloss if you can? I think home is without a doubt a feeling that either when you come back to your apartment, or you're with friends or with family, it's not so much a physical place as it is a feeling. In our apartment specifically, it just feels like us, and it feels cozy, and it feels warm and inviting, and we like to have friends over for Sunday football, and it feels just like a gathering place, which I love. And it's not so much that where our apartment actually sits, it's sort of how we've created it, and it's not a vibe, but it's more just the feeling of it is what I always identify home as.
Come on in, I've been waiting for you. Hey, Homeworthy. I'm Kim White, and welcome to my apartment in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Kim White. I am a makeup artist and interior designer here in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Apartment hunting in New York is stressful, anxiety-inducing. It will make your hair fall out. I landed in this apartment because of my good friend Holly. She was like, take a look at this studio apartment upstairs. I was in the middle of a breakup. I needed somewhere to go, and quickly I moved upstairs in the studio and lived there for, oh gosh, a little bit shy of 3 years. The pandemic hit, and my neighbor who was living in this unit moved away. I snapped into action and moved downstairs. So I currently live on the ground level, the garden level. Everything is set up in a railroad concept, so all of the rooms are adjoining, and it's just a long trailing apartment all the way to the backyard. So welcome to my living room. This room for me was such a challenge. There's doors and windows and openings and opening. So setting it up was tricky. But one thing for certain, I was not going anywhere without my grandmother's lamp. I love starting a room with a vintage piece, and this piece has so many memories. Like, this piece got me in trouble as a kid so much. Like, if you don't get off that chain, don't pull on that chain. Like, I would get in trouble for this. Like, look, I can do it now. But yes, this piece has so many memories. My grandmother is no longer with us, so having it in my home, it just feels like that moment where I can honor her, and I just think back to my childhood for sure with this piece. I do love incorporating other vintage pieces as well. Cherish and Facebook Marketplace are great resources for that. Like, I got these candlesticks off of Cherish. Honestly, the color palette for this space started with these tones. I knew that I wanted it to be neutral but warm. A full-size sofa would eat up too much real estate, so I opted for these banquettes. My dear friend Holly is a jack of all trades. She created these custom slipcovers for the banquettes to make them fit seamlessly in a living room setting. But the sneaky bit of it, and the way that you use space in New York, like to the optimum premium effect, it is also storage. No linen closet, no problem. So seasonally, I like to change the space around, and I love a good throw. And this season, I'm working with the leather shag rug as a throw. It adds a chunky bit of texture and movement just to kind of pull the space together in a heavy, sizable way. I just love it. And I love the smell of it too. Like, leather in the home, smells delicious. So moving from a studio, I had no furniture. And now, like, I have a full apartment. So I was on Facebook Marketplace like a mad woman, just hunting. And I found some really gorgeous pieces like this credenza here. Like, it has a history. It is old enough to still be on wheels. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know, like, this is an old piece, and it came with two. Like, I have this one and a chest of drawers, and I think I paid like $95 for the set. So I was so excited. I've been growing coleus in the apartment all summer long. Now, it's a nice way to bring in like little touches of color. And as you can see, like, this one is growing just from a grow light. They are splendid, splendid plants, easy to take care of. The only issue that I've noticed so far is fungus gnats, like gnats everywhere. But like, I can deal with that. Look at how pretty this guy is. When I moved in, there was like a little heater fireplace that was sitting here, and I tucked it in this area for a good while. Recently, I was on Facebook Marketplace again, and I found a larger fireplace unit, and I went all the way to, I don't know where. I got it all the way home and I dropped it. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but I got to the door and dropped it. Glass was everywhere. So here we are. We're making it work. But I do love it. It lends itself to that like cozy, warm aesthetic that just makes a house a home for me. The fireplace, I decided to paint it black just to really make it heavy and ground this area. Who does a lot of ceramics. This is a vintage piece from Cherish that I just absolutely loved. The lady lounging on the fireplace, like, there's nothing more indicative of who I am, like just laid back chill, like a lady chilling. That's me. This table has been in my life for a very long time. This was purchased on a shopping spree with my mother. I think we were at TJ Maxx in Dayton, Ohio, and we had set the table aside in the break room. And this woman was like following us around the store, like kind of like putting everything that we laid our hands on in her cart, and she tried to take my table. My mother was not having that. So as you can see, my mom won, and I've had this table in my life for a very, very long time. What I do love about it is underneath the construction allows for me to tuck, like, I'll tuck like blankets and some towels if need be up underneath in the hollows of this table. So it's a functional piece for me, and I've restyled it a million different ways. I have styled, restyled, and styled it again. Another sentimental piece for me, it's a very simple, sturdy option, is this chair. This was my first commercial client. I had the opportunity to style a company called Sit On It's showroom here in New York. That, like I said, that was my first commercial space that I did interiors for. And I took this chair home as a souvenir, and it's one of those things where I know, like, when you walk in, you don't know, like, oh, this is baby's first commercial job. But it was. This season, I really went deep and rich with a dark rug. This is from Ruggables. It's their Architectural Digest collection. And I love the way that it pulls like that, the weight of the room down a bit, and just makes it rich and elegant. So thank you, Ruggables, for this beautiful rug, and it just ties seamlessly with my living space, my kitchen, my outdoor space. It's just a rich addition that I love. So I don't have a bunch of space for art in this apartment, but I did incorporate a couple of images from my makeup artistry into the artwork on the space. This is a photo shoot that I did makeup for, and the photographer was like, hey, hop in, you guys have twin hair. And here we are. I saved the images, framed them, and they work very nicely, and also give me that sentimental feeling of, you know, this is work that I've done. This is who I am. This is a memory. I am one of those people who has had the chance to do what I love. I recognized at a very early age that beautiful things made me comfortable. Beautiful spaces, beautiful aesthetic, beautiful clothing, beautiful makeup. And that is, I turned my love for beauty into a career in makeup. So I grew up in Ohio. I started doing makeup for my friends and family. Eventually, I started getting hired to do makeup, and I became a makeup artist. A lot of people don't recognize that Ohio has a bunch of large brands like Procter & Gamble and Limited Brands were very big when I lived there, and those were my clients. So being a little bit feisty, I noticed that I'd be on set and they'd fly someone in from LA or New York. And I remember I was on a job. This like changed the whole trajectory of my life. I was on a job and I happened to be standing like right next to the production table. And I saw the invoice for the hair person. They made triple the money that I was making. They were flown in and housed. So I was like, oh, if I'm here, then I'm not gonna mess up the shoot. But I think I need to go there to start to make money. And that is how I ended up moving. I moved to Miami first, and then I made my way to New York. All because of this invoice that I saw sitting on a desk. I was like, you will not best me. So I've been doing makeup here professionally ever since. It's been an exciting ride. Like, makeup has afforded me the opportunity to travel the world. I worked on a travel show. I've had an opportunity to work in daytime television, on, series, fashion shows, Broadway, all of those things. Makeup has put me in rooms that I would never have had entry into. And for that, I am very grateful. So when I moved into the apartment, this bathroom, it's tiny, and it was just jam-packed together. Like, the toilet was here, the sink was here, and the tub was there. And I was like, this is just not functional. So I asked, hey, what if we let the tub go and do a larger shower stall? And that way the sink can have a little bit of breathing room, a little countertop. You're not like jammed up, like brushing your teeth with like a foot on the toilet, basically. He allowed me to make some edits to this space, and it has a much better flow. And as you notice, like, there's a trend in removing the tub and having just a shower. Many hotels are doing that. And, I do have a portable bathtub for those moments when I just want to like soak. So I feel like I'm having the best of both worlds. My daily life, I still have like counter space and I can get ready, but I don't have a luxury bathtub, but I do have a functioning soaking tub. When I moved in, I was like, okay, this area, what am I going to use it for? Let's just throw some shelves up. And I like the way that they turned out. I've had a fascination with skin and beauty and bodies for a very long time. No secret, I'm a makeup artist, so of course, who's surprised? But over the years, friends and family have allowed me to turn a lens on them. And I started to take like little small intimate photos. This was taken in, Cambodia. That's me. I love an ankle bracelet moment. Also, some of my travels are reflected in, just what's around in the space. Like, for instance, a trip to Mexico. I got those 2 pressed tin pieces, and I just love them. Like, they've made their way through many an apartment. So plants in the bathroom are a yes for me. Like, plants purify the air, and I'm all about that. Like, I've gone so far to spoil my plants and to make sure that they're healthy by incorporating grow lights on all of these shelves so that they can grow and be healthy. So yes, I'm a plants in the person. I'm a plants in the bathroom type person. So when you're here, like I said, I'm a makeup artist, so I really appreciate the human form, but particularly hands. I work with my hands and I love handmade objects. So you'll find a couple of hands, my handiwork and handmade things all around my home. What I loved about this building when I moved in, even though my studio was tiny, I really love the whole Brooklyn aesthetic. This is a beautiful brownstone, exactly what Brooklyn is known for. It has such a community feel. So living here was everything that I needed at that moment. And the pandemic hit, and here I am, trucking it downstairs to a bigger unit, thank goodness. Classic garden apartment. I'm from Ohio, and space is a bit more plentiful in Ohio. So when I moved to New York, I had to pare down quite a bit. So you have to be very intentional about how you decorate a space in New York. Immediately, I knew that in this apartment, I wanted to have a place for family and friends to gather for dinner, like a proper dinner table. So one of my areas, I call it the lounge. It houses my dining table, my bar is in there, my laundry room is in there, but that is where we can have a proper meal, like family style meal. So I really wanted to have a place dedicated for dining. And I was able to eke out a dining area slash lounge right in this space here. Again, I used the storage banquettes. So there's a bunch of light bulbs and tools and all of the inner workings of a home right up underneath there. But friends and family can come over and join me for a meal, and we can all sit here and have a proper dinner. There's obviously banquet seating here, but I do have some sneaky storage behind these banquettes where I pull out a couple of folding chairs and have even more seating for friends and family. I love this area. It doesn't get a lot of light, so I wanted it to have reflection to ping the light around the room. I used, much like upstairs in my studio apartment, I used a bit of the gold contact paper just to like reflect the light this way. And then I took on a mirror project that almost killed me. Like, I was in here sucking on fumes for days and weeks, and actually, to be honest, for months. But I'm so happy with how these antiqued mirrors turned out. This was a labor of love. I was scraping and painting and sponging, and I put some up. I didn't like them, had to take them down and start all over again. It wore me out, but I have to say it was well worth it, because now that they're here, it gives such a warm reflection in this area that it just makes this space that was kind of dead, because there is no window in this area. It gives it life and hominess, and it makes you want to sit down and have a meal. I love how this room turned out, and it is, of course, my handiwork. I painted these mirrors by hand. Friends can come in, they make themselves at home, grab some wine, you know, have a seat. And if it's one of those nights, I'll invite them to Club Cavados. In fact, you're invited to Club Cavados too. So right behind these doors is what I call Club Cavados. And it is not only my bar area, you know, we can make a cocktail, all of the things, but it also stores my clothes. In New York, you have to use every inch of space. So like, there's sweaters and bags and belts all in these drawers here. So what is that saying? It's a party in the front, business in the back. Well, that's what's happening here in Club Calvados. I don't know if you're familiar. Calvados is one of my favorite brandies, French brandies. So I painted this bar area just to mimic, actually this is Calvados right here. I painted the bar in the same tones, just that warm, earthy, beautiful, smooth feeling of Calvados, like, is reflected all throughout here. I took a chance and I used fine paints of Europe. Now, I don't know if you've painted much, and I absolutely hate painting, but fine paints of Europe makes a beautiful lacquer finish. This is my first go at it. So there is a learning curve and I will try it again, but for a first run, I'm pleased with how it looks. And it also bounces light in this room where there is no window. So even the doors and the ceiling of the bar bounce the light to create that cozy environment. So I recently went to Minnesota and got certified as a 3M installer. 3M makes these beautiful architectural films called Dynoc, and this is actually one of those films. The films are great in a rental situation because you can save a bit of money on like the actual like buying slate for this, and I moved 2 years from now, might be cost prohibitive, but 3M's architectural films like make this area a lot more luxurious at a fraction of the cost. So I'm very excited to put my certification into use very, very soon. So the lighting in this room was important. This is also a Facebook Marketplace find. Like, you can find some great things on Marketplace. Do not poo-poo Marketplace. There are so many great things. This was a $25 purchase, and the woman gave me two. So I have another one. It's not as beautiful as this one, but I have another one just this size in my storage. But yes, it was the perfect addition to a space like this. A dining table was my landlord's father's coffee table. It was in the basement here, and he was like, I know that you'll do something with this. So he gave me the table. It was on like a tree stump at first. So I took it apart and I put it on a swivel base. I'm still working through the process of this, but it does make it a lot easier for friends and I to get seated and move around. So we never have to like pull the table out for someone to enter. We can kind of just swivel the table, which has been like amazing for holidays. Making sure to utilize all the space in this apartment. Behind, we have extra seating, hiding in plain sight. And it makes for a great dinner party. It's the perfect place to entertain. And right next to the dining room is my bedroom. So this is the smallest room in the apartment. It also has no windows. It's like the perfect cave for sleeping. Like I totally hibernate in here just like a bear, for sure. The bed provides a lot of storage. It is on hydraulics. It's the IKEA Malm bed, I believe. And up underneath are all of my out of season clothing and a few comforters and all of that tucked away right here. When I moved into the apartment, these closets had doors, but in order to use a queen size bed in the space, I needed to remove the doors and replace them with curtains. So I've done that just so that I can utilize the curtains without having it bump into my bed. And right at the end of the bed, you'll see I've had this trunk. I used it upstairs in my studio apartment as a coffee table. Up there, it also held my jewelry. It still does. So many years ago, a trip to Mexico, I saw this headboard by Casamity. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So I purchased a silver one that I had for, I don't know, like 10 years. And I realized, oh, they make it in a different colorway. They make a gold version. So I reached out to the company. I sold my silver one and replaced it with the gold one. That's how much I love this headboard. I bought it twice. But it's just such a conversation piece. And again, I love handmade things, and the hand craftsmanship of all of this detail really speaks to me. So I'm sure that I'll have this one for just as long. It really warms up this space. And again, when you're in these dark situations where there are no windows, the idea is to bounce the light around, and this headboard does exactly that. Just like my childhood, I've really enjoyed dressing my dresser. It's a functional space as well. I have all of my perfumes here. Like, I love fragrance. I absolutely love to smell good. I've been wearing perfume since I can remember. This is the perfect place for them. And the mirror behind kind of mimics the antiqued mirror of the lounge. It has that little edge work. So I feel like they kind of just tie in together as like a cohesive design throughout the apartment. It has like a bit of a flow. So when I was on the hunt for furniture, this piece, along with the piece in the living room, were a pair, and it has worked perfectly because it holds so much of my clothing. Like, so many sweaters, so many socks, lingerie, everything in here. It's the perfect addition to this tiny, tiny bedroom. So looking back in retrospect, I was that little girl who found comfort in making my room and any area that I was in cozy. Decorating my bedroom, or even just decorating my dresser, gave me comfort, safety, and a little bit of agency. So as you mature, like, I never let that go. Each apartment, every home, even boyfriend's home, I needed to make myself comfortable in. I know that's like going too far in some ways, but your bathroom's a mess. Let's get it together. So I found myself like, being open to helping people improve their space, like beautify their space, making things more comfy and cozy and functional. Okay, so right off of the bedroom is my office / spare bedroom / workout room. This is a very hard working room. I work on the computer here, friends and family spend the night here, and I also work out in this room. This room does triple duty. Right away when you walk in, here's another opportunity that I had to put the lens on friends and family, and also a self-portrait. So I'm very happy with how the warmth of that kind of set the vibe and tone of this room. This is a northern exposure, so it doesn't get a lot of light in this room. I just honored that by painting it black. Since it is so dark and heavy, having a faux fireplace in this little library area really leans into the cozy vibes of the space. Tucked away, right next to that, you'll find hard working weights for when I want to work out and pump a little bit of iron. It's all there, tucked away behind those baskets. I do love riding my bike. I go through bouts. Sometimes I ride it frequently and then other times I fall off. But right now I'm on. If you're on, find me on Peloton app and let's ride together. One of my favorite workouts is to rebound. And I find that when my rebounder is out, I do it more frequently. So with that in mind, I had it upholstered. So you enter the room and you see this beautiful ottoman, right? Well, it is also my trampoline. So like this is me in the mornings working out here. It's one of my favorite workouts, truly. I like to just like hop on the trampoline every now and then. It like helps me like clear my thoughts or think through something. It's one of those things where you can like get up and it makes you feel invigorated. So having this in the center of the room is a true health benefit for me. Stress relieving, all of those things right here in the center. And when I'm done, it's the perfect place for friends and family to kick up our feet and watch a little bit of television. So I've had this chest for a good while now. I bought it back when chat rooms were a thing, and I was searching for furniture. I'd never been to Morocco, and I was kind of like in this Moroccan chat room. And I met a woman there who was like, oh yes, I have all of this beautiful furniture. And she started sending pictures, and this was one of the pieces. And I purchased it from her. And again, it's one of those things that I've styled in a bunch of different ways, and it has followed me to a bunch of different apartments. And it's a piece, a statement piece that I plan to keep for an eternity. So the heart of every home is the kitchen. And when I moved into this unit, the kitchen it had seen better days. My landlord was very gracious and offered me the opportunity to design this kitchen and utilize the space how I saw fit. So immediately we took down a single row of cabinets and took them all the way to the ceiling. The ceilings are relatively low. Like, I mean, you can see I can touch them, but taking it to the ceiling makes this room look a lot more expansive. So I wrapped the cabinets around a corner, and I used a couple of medicine cabinets actually to finish off the cabinets in this area. And as you can see, like they're very shallow, but they hold quite a bit of objects in there, like my teacups and different teas and whatnot. I also added some shelving for storage, but also, you know, to give the kitchen a bit of a vibe. Of course, I have, you know, my cake plates and little tchotchkes here and there. It's like, I love ducks. There's a duck in my life, and I kind of follow that throughout my home also. I said I'm sentimental. I'm very, very sentimental, and these people know who they are when they're reflected in the space. But yeah, people are represented all around my home. Up on the shelves, a few cookbooks. My dish towels are here. My mom's old Vision cookware. I recently had her send that to me. Like, there was something about looking at things boil in Vision's cookware when I was a kid. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need that here. So she sent that recently, and I use it. I'm happy to have it. And it means something to me. It's like the story of my childhood in some ways. Recently, I started to dabble a bit with AI. I hopped on and created this art piece here on the shelf, really and truly just to hide the cords to my lighting. But it turned out so nice. I'm happy to have it there. I'm calling it Fruits of My Labor, and it's actually on my website. There's a free digital download. So if you're interested, hop on kimwhitestyle.com and you can find it there and download it for yourself if you like. What really set this kitchen off, I'd have to say, is the wallpaper on the cabinets. And it is a design. I'm a huge, huge fan of Copacabana stone. And I knew that that wasn't an investment that I would want to make in a rental, but I did want to have that look. So I created this wallpaper to mimic that stone. And as you can see, I wrapped all of my cabinets in it, and it gives this kitchen a lot of movement and personality. I really, really love the way that it turned out. And again, it is one of those things that I have on my website. This one is for purchase, but if you're interested, you can definitely grab this wallpaper as well. As you saw, like my dining area is a little bit dark and I wanted to follow the sun. I bought this console and this like little stool so that I could sit at the window and have my breakfast, have my coffee when the weather isn't nice outside, so that, you know, so I can, when the weather isn't such that I can go outside. I like to sit in this window and just like feel the sun on my on my face. For a very long time before I found just the right piece, I had stretched out an ironing board and I had a little stepping stool and I was just sitting at the ironing board eating breakfast. My friends were cracking up like, why is that iron in your kitchen? It was all just to get a feeling of what the size constraints were in this space without making it feel too tight or too cramped, because I mean, I can stretch my arms out and we're pretty much taking up the width of this whole kitchen. It's not a very big kitchen. It's not very tall and it's not very wide. So each piece has to be carefully picked so that you don't feel overwhelmed in the space. And this one, I'd looked for a while for root tables, but you could never get one that was guaranteed that my legs could slide up underneath. This one from Front Gate is a cast replica of the root tables, so I knew what I was ordering and I knew that my legs would slide up underneath, and it has been a great piece for me. It has served me well. Accompanied by a stool, which of course has more storage. Yeah, it's been a great place for me to just like take my coffee in the morning and gather my thoughts. The kitchen it's packed. I like to eat and I like to cook, so all of these cabinets are chock full of stuff. And I've made sure to arrange them in a way that is also functional. Like my bread boxes in here, all of my spices. I didn't have a pantry and I kept racking my brain like, how can I get a pantry in here? I need some more storage space for food. And it finally hit me to use the space behind the door. So here we are, behind the door storage, double wide. So here we have all of my pantry goods, that all of my dry goods here on these shelves that are attached to the wall, and the doors are, I found on Facebook Marketplace again. The doors were added later, but the shelves are attached to the wall, and it gives me like a shallow amount of space, but it holds so much. And that wasn't enough. So I started thinking again, like, how can I get even more? Let's push over more to the door. So I added a few more shelves in this area too. For all of my canned goods. Like I said, I love to cook, I love to eat, and I wanted to be able to make this space functional for me. So there's storage behind the door here, but when you open the door, this is my favorite part of this apartment, the outdoor space. So as I continue to grow and have the opportunity to express myself, whether it's through makeup or designing interiors, I recognize that I want to share it with a broader audience. So I am going to start a YouTube channel up again, and that way I can film some of the projects that I'm doing and share them and hopefully inspire some of you guys out there with what I'm doing and why. The why, the how, and of course, make it functional and fabulous. The kitchen. And what I love about this area, since you have such a great view of the yard, the two spaces mingle together. So it's just an extension of of the way that I want to live, like right out of the window. So one of my favorite parts of the apartment is this outdoor space. I snuggle up in this corner and have my morning coffee. It is the one place in the yard that has a bit of privacy. Like, it's kind of tucked up under here, so they don't see me, they don't see me, they don't see me. And I come out here in my PJs and sit and have coffee in the morning. When I first moved in, all of this was just rubble. So immediately I knew that I wanted to have a seating area. So we carved out a path and built a deck at the end of the yard. It's the perfect place to have it because there's a tree line there, and in the spring, the beautiful magnolia flowers overhang atop of the deck, and it's just like the perfect situation. It's very lovely. But like I said, the yard was filled with garbage, so it seemed like mulch was my best and most affordable option. So I mulched the yard. My friend Denise, she's a scrappy one, she brought over all of this pachysandra, and over the last couple of years that I've been here, it has filled in nicely, and as you see, it's about to flower. She brought the ferns as well, just loaded them up in a truck and we planted them. Even the baby maple. And all of that stuff is growing so nicely now. And each year I try to make a couple of different additions. Some have worked, some have not. Like, I bought a ton of seeds and none of them grew. This year I bought some honeysuckle. It didn't do so great. The ivy, a few sweet potato plants, some jasmine. But yes, trying to create a zen, comfortable moment for myself in the middle of this urban environment. It's the perfect place to grab a book, to just chill out. In the summer, the evenings, you know, the string lights come on and we're out here, we're having conversation, playing music, having a cocktail. It's a great place to lounge, and you forget that you are right in the middle of a bustling city. It's my own oasis back here, and I'm really, really grateful for it. One of the things that inspired me in the design of this space is to bring the same feelings and the same vibe, the same energy from inside outdoors. So I'm test running, you know, a bunch of different materials to see if they can handle the elements. Like, for instance, this marble table. It's been out here now for a couple of years. This year I sealed it and it's been handling the elements nicely, but there's a movement towards outdoors feeling like outdoor living rooms. And this feels like you're inside my home, honestly. One of the things that is key when you live in New York is to try your best to avoid rats. Now, this is a serious conversation. So when we built this deck, we did a trench method. So all around the perimeter of the deck is a buried chicken wire. So you go about a foot deeper than the actual deck with the chicken wire so that rats don't take domicile up underneath your deck. Obviously, it's New York. You're gonna see a rat or two, but that right there, like, if rats were like constantly moving back and forth in this yard, I wouldn't even be out here. So just that's key when you're really thinking about designing an outdoor space here in New York. My super, who is lovely, it came out here and I'm like, I want the deck to have an organic feel to it. So we placed the planks just as you would uniformly. And then later on, we went in and gave it the curves and movement so that this area wouldn't feel so blocky. as a renter, I wanted to make sure that cost-wise, I wasn't spending too much. So I opted for all solar lighting out here. So the string lights are solar, all of the spotlights are solar as well. Each of them does have a switch, so they can be turned off. I know that that has been mentioned in the past. You can turn off a solar light, just so you know. That's a cost-effective way of getting lighting in a situation when you don't have electricity to run towards it. Home for me is a place where I can totally decompress. It is a place where I recharge. It's the place where I get my best ideas. I feel serene. I feel complete. Yeah, home it's my nest.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Corey. Welcome to my apartment. Come on in here, get out of the hall.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Corey Beth Hogue, and I'm an artist, and we are in my apartment in Lefferts Gardens, Brooklyn. I knew I wanted to be near Prospect Park, which is about 10 minutes that way. So we were driving around the neighborhood and we saw a realtor sign on the side of a building, and I called. And yeah, they showed me this place. And there used to be a gigantic mirror on this wall. When I walked in, like one of those 1980s crackly deals. But I took it down. I believe I have been here about 13 years. So the process of the apartment has taken about that long. And because I'm a maker and I make things all the time and I get attached to them, and so then I start piling them, you'll see when we walk through the place, you'll see, you're like, oh, I made that, and then I made that, and then I made that, because that's how it happened. In a lot of ways, that's how the apartment got its look, is that I either made things for myself or for my job, and they've just accumulated over time. And plus I like color and handmade things and unique things. So for the most part, I make paper plants, and I started doing that about 10 years ago and published a book called Handmade Houseplants. And so I teach different classes online, and I have tutorials that are available on Etsy, and I also do paper mache projects like for the home. So you'll see those scattered about the apartment. So vases, trays, things like that, frames, and I have tutorials and templates that I provide people and teach. I suppose my favorite room is the room we're in, which is my little art studio, which is just on the side of the living room. So when you walk in the front door, it's a big open space. And so I put up a shelf just as a little divider. And so this side became my studio, which is great because this is where the big windows are. So I get nice natural light for when I'm working. And I have tons of little workspaces to do all my various crafts and make magical things. We are currently in the living room, and behind me is the front door, the entryway. So a bunch of my paper plants are here, which works out because maybe you can tell on the video, but the window is over there in the studio. And then I did this very wise thing of putting the shelf to block all the light. So anyway, if I wanted to have real plants right here, I never could have because the window is way over there. But that's all right, it works out. Look. 6 butts can go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had a couple cool great aunts who were the first or of the first in their fields for women. So the one that I inherited this from was an architect, and she graduated from Tulane in the 1940s, and she had a job in New York City. And so she brought this couch, or she got this couch here in the 50s, and I inherited it. So it came to New York, and then it went back to Mississippi. I'm from Mississippi, and then it came back again. That's where that couch came from. That one is also mid-century, but I think more like 70s, whereas this is, more like 50s. That one came from Craigslist. Oh, and this was my aunt's marble table too, from her big New York City job as an architect in the 1950s. When the door just opens to your living room, what do? Oh, so you just put a little tiny furniture, and you put all your keys and your umbrellas and your hats and stuff in there. And then here I have, oh, that's Ryan. These are portraits that I made of the two of us sometime, I don't know, 2 years ago maybe. And what happened was I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they had these portraits in their European painting wing. And I just became enamored with how they were done. These are very poor, you know, I wasn't able to skill-wise do what they did. But sentimentality-wise, you know what I mean? The portrait at the Met had this nice green color. So I just assigned myself. You know, sometimes art projects, I just assign myself what I wanted to. So in this case, I decided, oh, I need 2 portraits of me and Ryan for the time when we live in a grand castle, and we need like portraits above a great big fireplace. But that didn't happen yet, so now they're just here by the door. And so the green is inspired by the Netherlandish work, and then the 2 frames are also inspired by 2 different frames that are at the Met, a little bit earlier than the paintings. They're made of cardboard and paper mache. So that was fun. And this is a paper mache tray that I made for the keys and the mask, and a begonia, paper begonia. On this wall is a collection of stuff. A lot of it I did, but that's because I'm a hoarder of crafts supplies and of my own crafts. So these, of course, are collages that I've been working on this year. And Ryan put them in these nice frames because he's a picture framer. And this collage I did a few years ago, and it's basically like paper scraps from my paper art projects, and then also fabric scraps from when I was making my pants, because I had a period there where I made like 20 different pairs of pants. So there was a lot of fabric scraps. Oh, so if you ever like, oh man, I need a big piece of artwork for over my couch, may I suggest scraps and little tiny rectangles. Just copy this. People comment on this all the time, and I swear I did this in like 2 hours, and you can too. And the other stuff here is some various prints from books. That great big flea market that happens in Atlanta every 3rd Saturday or whatever it was. One time I went there and I bought a bunch of prints out of books. So that's what some of this stuff is. And this, which is slightly hidden, is a print. And I have a couple others in different rooms. Is a woodcut by Martin Mazzora. And he did these like country crooner couples. This is Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner. Now, God bless Dolly Parton. Even though that's not, the likeness is a little, she looks a little wonky, but we love her. We love her so much. And of course, everybody knows that she wrote I Will Always Love You for Porter Wagoner, so that's who that is. That's one of Ryan's paintings, my partner. There's a few around the apartment, but he has a studio in Red Hook. I painted this. That was kind of fun, doesn't it? I followed a tutorial that I saw in the New York Times, although I had to follow it loosely. That's how I got inspired to paint the lampshade. So many books that they have grown on top of each other, but that is okay. Handmade houseplants, remarkably realistic plants you can make with paper by Corey Beth Hogue with photography by Christine Hahn. This is a tutorial book for making paper plants. All kinds of, I think there's 30 different paper plants in here. And then you get the templates in the back. Oh, here's one of my begonias, my paper begonias. And this little plate I love, it's by Sylvie St. Andre Perrin. She's a potter. We went to her studio in Paris, and I was able to get this and another one. So I used to work for this designer called David Stark Design, and we published a book called The Artisan's Table. So I was kind of like the producer, project manager, stylist type person on that. And so we went to Paris because she's one of the artists in the book and went to her studio, and so I got this. I love it. And this is one of my paper mache trays. And this little pomegranate is by Anandamandi Arnold. I think I'm saying her name right. I really hope so. A paper artist out of California. These were 2 samples that I made for a project for David 15 years ago, probably. But you know, they're sort of inspired by Claus Oldenburg. But luckily I got to keep them because they were just samples. This sweet little painting, it's actually a print, but I have some artists in my family, and my aunt, Leafia Smith, is an artist, and she painted this of the house that she grew up in, and where I sort of went to spend Christmas and stuff, my grandparents. So there's like a lot of memories here with cousins and family gathering and stuff. So everybody got a print of her painting, so that's mine. Okay, so these 2 cigar box guitars, Ryan and I made when we were first dating, and he's lefty, so he made this one. It's left-handed, and I made this one. They do play, although I haven't touched it in a while, so I probably need to replace the strings, but yeah, that was a fun, because he's an artist too, so it was a fun craft project that we did together. And people always ask me about this chair. I mean, look at this wild fabric. This was just a lucky find from this place called Yesterday's News. It's on over there on Court Street and Carroll Gardens. They have a lot of good stuff, vintage stuff. And yeah, I just found that one day. Didn't have to reupholster it, came like that. I said, who wants a loud chair? Me, I'll take a loud chair. We're in the kitchen now / dining room. We traveled very far to get here. No. Okay, so this table I made. It is not fancy, but I did make it because this room is kind of narrow, right? I'm feeling lucky that even though this building is like 1952, I think, that it is a little bit open floor plan, and that the kitchen, you know, there's not like the kitchen is not closed off, but it just meant that this room is a little bit narrow. So I debated a round table, and then ultimately I landed on this long narrow table, which kind of doesn't exist, this being this narrow, because this is even less than 3 feet wide. So I just made it. What happened was I got 3 planks of wood, and then the legs are made with, I drew them in Illustrator, and then I sent them to a CNC guy who cut them. And yeah, so then I painted it this, you know, sort of Eve's Klein blue, which is nice blue. And I painted one of my favorite paper plants that I like to make, which is the Rex begonia. And these are just Target chairs. Oh, and this rug is something that I inherited from my great aunts that I were talking about earlier, because they have good taste. And oh, this is a little sconce that I made with paper mache. Don't worry, it's a battery operated candle. Don't worry, I wouldn't do that to you. I just got a bee in my bonnet that said, make a giant asparagus, and so that's what I did. You know, there's some artists, like I mentioned before, like Claus Oldenburg, that does make these oversized things. Maybe I was inspired by that, but also it was like the pandemic, and I was like assigning myself projects left and right to like stay busy while I was staying home all the time. So yeah, this is just a tube, like a mailing tube, and then the bottom where it gets wider is an oatmeal container. You know, Quaker oats, when they come in those tubs that are like that. So that's down there. And then these little parts of the asparagus are just cardboard. Paint, of course. Oh, paper mache plates that I made. That one is Ryan's initials and my initials and the year that we met. But those are just cardboard and paper mache. And this was another project sample that I made for David a million years ago. There was a trend going on there for a while, or his interest was, but this one was crochet. I do remember how long this took me to make. Do you want to know? 40 hours. I mean, part of that is because I was like, how do I make that? How do I do, I was like figuring it out. Some I had to take it apart and put it back together. Okay, we do have a few real plants and a few paper plants as well. More books. Oh, this was a fun project. This is, over there when I was talking about my collages and I was talking about how I painted the newspaper, that started when I made this 3D sculpture, this flower arrangement with painted newspaper. And this was a domino sugar package. No paper is safe. No paper is safe in my house. Or tube or cardboard. But anyway, yeah. So, and junk mail, like this different stuff is junk mail and stuff. Anyway, and then of course one of my paper mache vases. And this little tiny desk, this was my work from home desk during the pandemic. Because at first, when everybody was having to work from home, I was working in my studio. And then the vibes were off because I was like, that's my studio space. And my desk had become my work desk. And so I just went on the interwebs and I bought myself this tiny little desk. And then this became the work from home spot. But it works out because occasionally we call this little corner the library. Doesn't it feel like that with the wingback chair and the lamp over the chair and stuff with the books? Like, oh, that's the library. Meanwhile, there's like 2 feet here and then 2 feet, but anyway. And that's Ryan's guitar. Over here next to the dining room, of course, is our kitchen, which functions very well. And, oh, we painted. Like we had the landlord special on these, so we did paint them. Over there are a couple more of those woodcuts that I was talking about earlier. This is another one of my pandemic projects. It was a Corey. Assign yourself more projects. So I made these crocheted eggs. And of course they got framed because Ryan is a framer. I mean, I know normal people don't do this, but that's what happened. And of course in the kitchen. I know they're green eggs and everyone's like, where's the ham? I am vegan. I do not eat ham, nor do I eat eggs, but they're green, so it's a fantasy. So this wallpaper I designed, and this is up here temporarily, so don't look too close because it's not perfect. But this is up here temporarily because I wanted to try it out because I just had it made on spoonflower with my design of the white wood aster. That native wildflower that grows in New York State and other places too. Yeah. And so yeah, I just got a small amount to try out here. And more of my paper plants. And this painting I made, and this is just sort of a funny thing where I became obsessed with the pattern. So I painted it on the table of the painting. So this weird thing is happening, right? Where they're sort of blending together. And then of course this is reminiscent of my paper mache. Just self-referencing, I guess. Oh, anyway, that's right. Oh, you know how there's that genre of painting when they have a plant growing out of a pot, right? It's like the flower of one thing and the leaf of another thing and the bud of another thing, and then sort of this like mix up of plants. So that's sort of what I was thinking of when I made this, hence why it's a Rex begonia vine, but it's also tulip, but it's also pokeweed and strawberry. Ooh, a bunch of my favorite stuff. But anyway, that's how that happened. Oh, and this is another paper mache frame I made. And that's, of course, me and Ryan. It's inspired by the Harvey album. Okay, so if you go onto the Met website, and you can see a bunch of their collection online, and because this one's not on display, but they have the Harvey album, and it's basically like Victorian women, and especially when photographs were new, they would hand paint the photo album. And so she had a lot of nice examples. They'll have like the image and the photo in the middle of the page of the album, and then around that they will have painted, a lot of times with watercolor. Oh, this is my very first paper mache project. Okay, so I did paper mache when I was a kid, and then of course, I think I had to do it in like a 3D design class in college. It was like typical art school stuff. But then when I knew I wanted to be Mary Poppins, I did this parrot umbrella. It was just a regular umbrella with a straight handle, because you know how some are crooked, but it was just a straight handle. And I made it with foil and paper towels, and then I covered it with paper mache and painted it. I suppose the place is neutral in that I haven't painted all the walls, and my 2 couches are neutral, and the floors are very neutral, but then everything else is color. That's just how I like it. You know what color does is that it bounces your eye around the room. I mean, that's true for any, when you're composing something like a painting or any kind of piece of art. One of the things that bounces your eye around it and keeps someone interested can be a color. I think I do that unconsciously, where I'm like, oh, there's blue here, so there needs to be like a pop of blue over there. And then just over time, the apartment looks colorful. If there was a flood that reached all the way up to the 6th floor, what would I swim away with? Oh, I just have like a couple little rings that were my grandmother's. I know they're not big and they're not gonna make a splashy moment in the film, but probably my grandmother's rings. This is the bedroom. This is where I sleep, and Ryan sleeps. More paper plants, and there's a little bit less color in here because I thought, oh, let's try it and like not have a clown car in the bedroom. So yeah, there's like more neutrals in here. And oh, here's some of that field maple that we were working on in the studio. I put it in here. One of my paper mache trays. Here's my grandmother's ring. Isn't that cool? Like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know where she got it or if it has a story, but it just kind of has that like texture. Isn't that unique? Oh, I love it. She was an artist too. Maybe she was just attracted to something that was a bit unusual. So, I don't know. She was tall. The women of on my mom's side of the family were tall. I don't know what happened. I didn't get it. But that's okay. Oh, so yeah, we made the furniture in here. It was another thing where I just designed the files on Adobe and I sent them to be cut CNC, and then we assembled them, those little side tables. And these little sconces are just cheapo Amazon ones, and I painted the scallops. And that little frame was another paper mache. And that's my sweet mom on a bicycle. Or she got a new bike, and so she took a picture. Bicycles are worth celebrating. We have to take photos when we get a new bicycle. Oh yeah, so the headboard is part of what we designed. It was just piece of plywood, birch plywood that was cut in that shape by the CNC person, humans. I want everybody to take a deep breath. Any paper mache there's two paper mache lamps in this apartment. In both cases, they're built around a glass existing lamp, so that there's no chance of anything touching a hot bulb. And the bulb isn't hot anyway because it's LED. Anyway, so I got an inexpensive fixture from Amazon, and I had to take it apart a little bit to install my paper mache lampshade over it. So this little room divider is just canvas. Ryan helped me make it. I know you see like a room divider in a movie or something, and someone is always like changing clothes behind it. No, you know what's behind there? My rowing machine and my yoga ball and my weight bench. Because who wants to look at that all the time? And if you don't have like a cozy basement where you put all your workout gear, then you put it behind a folding screen that you made with your boyfriend out of canvas and paint. That's what happened. I mean, probably if you spend a little time working on things, like there's nothing fancy about this apartment, right? It's a rent stabilized building. It's made out of brick. Even, there's no like fantastic architecture or anything like that. But I made so much in here that I've just grown more attached to the space itself because there's like memories attached to everything. Oh, this is funny. This is, I hope there's nothing in there that you don't need to see. But these are just inexpensive Target shelves because I wanted something narrow here for storage. And then I just sewed this table skirt and put this hunk of wood on here. But really what's under there is just cheapo Target shelves. I did a little something that was little Looney Tunes in here. Did you pick up on it? Can you tell what I did? The bed is not in the center of the room. because the lamp is there, right? So it sort of feels like the bed should be in the center. But I said to myself, where are you going to do your jumping jacks? Over there. Because really it's kind of a long room, isn't it? For a relatively small New York City apartment. So I decided to put this here and center the bed on here and put the painting here and make this feel like the center. And then you sort of forget that the light is not actually in the center of the bed. But then that just gives me this little space over there to do my exercising. Hey, we're in my studio. This table here is just a door. And these are the little sawhorses I made in my brother's backyard. And I cleaned out for you guys, meaning all my art supplies are over there. Because usually this table is a big, huge mess. Have you ever seen so many pins in your life? Probably not. But listen, this is where I get to make things, and it's the joy of my life. And I just love art supplies. You know how some people collect like music boxes or dolls or seashells? I collect art supplies. So I have a ton. I have a ton of art supplies, but it makes me happy. So I do have tons of stuff pinned to my bulletin board. And that's something else that has happened over time, right? Someone sends me a card, I like the front of it, I pin it up there, or I make a little puppet of a dog and I pin it up there. Or I go to a show at an art museum and I like the little flyer, so I pin it up there. You know what's cool up here is the unicorn tapestry at the Cloisters, you know, the Met Cloisters. If you haven't gone, you gotta go. I was marking down which paint pens and which paint colors I used on a project, and I sort of liked how it looked, so I stuck it up there. Oh, that's me when I was, what, probably 5. My friend made me that as part of a Halloween costume because I needed something really lightweight. It's just MDF plywood. So I needed something really lightweight to carry around as part of a Halloween costume. And I just liked it because you know how when something comes together like really quickly and it's kind of like slapdash, there's some charm to it. And so I've always just really liked it. So it's been hanging up there for a while. And over here are some mounted animal heads that I feel like I made in a different lifetime because I did probably make them 15 years ago. But yeah, they're just happy. So those are there. Oh, here's my little puppet that I made after I saw the unicorn tapestry. I don't know if you can tell that it's a little unicorn and her little legs. You can move them and shape them and stuff. You know what I like about this is the possibility in here. My aforementioned, you know, obsession with art supplies means that just about anything is possible. And so when I come in here, what am I limited by? Time and my own self-doubt. But other than that, just about anything is possible. So this table, I kind of can break down and put back up depending on what I'm working on. These are just IKEA sawhorses, and again, this is another hollow door. So right now I've been working on these collages of geraniums. So here is all the stuff I've been using to do that. And I can show you, so I've been using recycled newspaper that I paint for the different parts of the collage. So like here's all the leaves and the flowers. Oh, and the different pots that I use, like on the collage. There's a series, so they're all like variations on a theme. Like I stuck to a really narrow theme, which is actually a new thing for me, but I thought it sounded fun. You know, sort of to make the same thing, but like slight subtle changes to it, like 10 or 12 times. So that's what's going on here. You know, it has 3 main elements, right? It's the plant, it's the pot that it's in, and it's the table that it's on. Oh, and the background, which is all just recycled paper that I've painted. And then I build with the flowers being in different places and the subtle shades of the green leaves. This studio, a lot happens in here because this little space right here Where the light comes in from the side is where I take, so my whole book was shot here. So if I'm taking a photograph for Instagram or making a video for TikTok or whatever, a lot of times I'm shooting right here. And I have these two little walls. This one is green right now and that one is pink. And they're just like, it's just my really low-tech filming studio. And they're just sheetrock that I slide on the floor on a bunch of old towels. Whatever gets the job done, let me tell you. So yeah, so then if I want something different, I'll paint them a different color. And they're just big enough for the, you know, the scale of the things that I make. Right here I was working on a field maple. Do you know a field maple? In the fall, you know how some trees turn red and some orange and some yellow? The field maple goes this sort of yellow chartreusey color. So this, I was trying to capture it in the fall. So yeah, what I like about field maple is I think they look kind of cartoony. Like all the edges are a little bit roundy. Anyway, I think that's fun. Anyways, that's what's going on here. And then this is one of my paper mache shapes that I make. This is the first stage, which is cardboard. And I just cut it and assemble it like that. And then it gets covered in a couple layers of paper mache, right? Right. And then it gets primed and then painted. So that's that one, obviously. And because it's my business, I can paint them however I want. Some of these templates you can get on my Etsy, Corey Beth Makes on Etsy. And this particular one, this shape, which is the same, ooh, did you get the echo? Ooh. But anyway, this shape is part of my class with Creative Bug. So creativebug.com. You can just search my name. So if you wanted to make this, there's like a video tutorial. And then you could paint yours however you want. Everything is labeled. It didn't start out that way. There's been years where it is a complete disaster. But earlier this summer, I cleaned. You're like, Corey, you still have a lot of stuff. What happened? You didn't clean good enough. I know. But I admitted it, addicted to art supplies. So yeah, I have to have stuff for sewing because I like to sew. That's my sewing machine. And I have to have stuff for my paper, and I have to have stuff for making paintings, and I have to have my photography stuff, and I have printmaking stuff. Oh, we know what's good about these shelves. I put the wheels on them. So then I have stuff stored behind, and it's all just like make do. You know, I don't have a, you know, those like, I see these images online where someone has like, everything is white and the shelves are all perfect. That didn't happen. I don't know, that didn't happen for me. Over time, it was like, oh, I have more stuff. I guess I better buy another shelf to put all my stuff. But anyway, it's working. It's working for now. And this is just enough space for the stuff I need to do. And yeah, like I said, I can break this table down if I need more floor space, because for dancing. Home means safety, comfort, love, and where you can be yourself. And I hope everybody gets to have that, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the other thing too. As someone who's, you know, I have visual language in my life, I make art, I've had design jobs, you know, my place in some respects might look like I've put some attention on it, but more important than how it looks is that I feel safe and like I could be myself here. So I hope that for you too. And plus my partner's here, Ryan is here, and we have a really sweet relationship, and he's a very kind man, and so I just feel really grateful that I get to share my life with him here.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.